Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is going to be all about what we should be expecting for Marvel Spider-Man 3. Now, I hope you all are enjoying Marvel Spider-Man 2. It's personally my favorite game I've ever played. It is just so damn fun. The story's great. I love Venom. He's actually my favorite Spider-Man villain. The game overall is just awesome, and they set up some pretty awesome stuff for the future of Marvel Spider-Man. Now, in this video, we are going to be talking about some spoilers from the second game. So if you guys haven't beat it or you don't want anything spoiled, make sure you leave this video right now. Okay, so we know what the two post-credit scenes are, we know how the story ended, and I think the next thing that we should be seeing before Spider-Man 3 is another Miles Morales game. And I think this game is going to be all about Miles becoming a mentor for Cindy Moon as Silk. I think we're going to find out that the spider that bit Cindy Moon is actually the same spider as Miles Morales, so a little bit different than the comics, because in the comics it was the same spider that Peter got bitten by. But I think it makes a little more sense to make it Miles because they are pretty much like the same age. You can kind of tell from that post-credit scene. And I think they might actually end up being love interests. So that could make things a little interesting and a little spicy in that Miles Morales 2 game. Plus, I think we are definitely getting that Miles game because at the end of the story in Spider-Man 2, Peter basically semi-retires, which there's not really a reason for that unless you wanted to make a Miles game. Because if you make a Miles game, then Peter has to be a part of it. But if Peter is semi-retired, then you can focus on Miles Morales for that game and Silk. So that game looks like it's going to be really interesting. I don't really have an idea of who the villain is going to be. I know some people are going to say Carnage, but I'll tell you why I don't think that is later on. Maybe the villains in this game will be Morlun, who is an inheritor, who basically is a spider totem hunter, which I think would actually work really well if he was hunting down Miles and Silk. And then I also think Ezekiel Sims could also be a villain in the game too. Or they could go a completely different direction, who knows? But this game does have the potential to be really great. But introducing Silk in that Miles game is going to be awesome because now we're going to have another playable spider character, and it will fit in with the name of Spider-Man 3 because Spider-Man 3 could mean 3 different spider people, just like Spider-Man 2 meant 2 different spider people. But okay, we talked about Miles Morales, which is going to be the game that's most likely coming out before Marvel Spider-Man 3, so let's go ahead and talk about who I think the main villains are going to be for that game. So I think the first main villain that we're going to see at the beginning of the game is actually going to be Carnage, who was teased in a side mission in Marvel Spider-Man 2, and I think he's going to play a similar role to what Kraven did in Spider-Man 2. He's going to be that kind of like first half villain that gets the story rolling. Cletus Cassidy as Carnage is just too big of a villain to do as a DLC for Spider-Man 2 or even a villain for a Miles Morales game, so I think Insomniac will definitely keep Carnage as a major villain for Spider-Man 3. Plus, it makes a lot of sense if Peter still has the anti-venom suit at the end of Spider-Man 2 that he's going to be saving it to end up fighting a strong symbiote villain again. Otherwise, he would just crush pretty much anybody in Spider-Man 3 if he has the symbiote the whole time. So I think Carnage will eventually make his way bonding with Norman throughout that game because as we know from Spider-Man 2, the symbiotes like a very strong host, and that's why Venom left Harry for Peter. Now Carnage could see Norman as the perfect host after he takes the Goblin formula, and he could leave Cletus for Norman. Then Cletus could be arrested or maybe even killed by Yuri aka Wraith. So I think that's who the main villains are going to be for the game. I think Carnage at the beginning, he's going to be, doing murders and stuff. Miles Morales and Silk are probably going to attempt to stop him, but they won't be powerful enough to do it, and then Peter has to come out of retirement, something along those lines. And I also think that Carnage could potentially even murder one of the main character's relatives, and I think the character with the highest chance of having someone in their family being targeted by Carnage is probably Silk. I think that would wrap her into the whole story very, very well. Just imagine if Albert is murdered by Cletus Cassidy as Carnage, just as Cindy Moon is starting her career as a spider person. I think that would be awesome, and then it would really tie into Miles as well because Miles' dad was also murdered by a Spider-Man villain, so he could definitely mentor Silk in a very similar way that Peter did to him when his dad died. It could also be Cindy Moon's mother, because we don't really know the status of her. We don't know if she's alive or dead. She was a scientist in the comics, so maybe she is a scientist in the Insomniac game universe. We don't really know as of right now, but I just think it would be a really great way to get Silk really involved with the whole narrative of the next game. Now let's talk about the Anti-Venom symbiote a little bit, because I think that symbiote will be leaving Peter at some point and creating a really awesome character. So I think by the third act of Marvel Spider-Man 3, the Anti-Venom symbiote suit is going to leave Peter and actually go back to Harry, curing him of his disease and making him into Agent Anti-Venom. He then could join the fight to help stop his father as the Green Goblin. Maybe Agent Anti-Venom's surge ability turns him into the monster version of Anti-Venom from the comics, which I think would be so damn cool. And I definitely don't think Peter is going to have that Anti-Venom symbiote for the whole game, so I think by him giving the symbiote to Harry, that will make him vulnerable at the end of the game against most likely Green Goblin as the final villain, the final boss. And I think this could also mean that we might even see Peter die in the third game. Now, don't get me wrong, I do not want this to happen, but I 100% think it's a very strong possibility. Peter technically died or almost died in the second game due to Kraven stabbing him, so I don't see them doing another fake out death for him in the third game, and I don't think he's going to survive against the Green Goblin. They've also been teasing that Miles is ready to take over the mantle as the main Spider-Man, so I think that just might happen after the events of Spider-Man 3. Can you imagine the game ending with Yuri Lowenthal's Peter dying with his friends and family surrounding him? Mary Jane sees him lifeless on the floor and is holding their baby Mayday. She falls to her knees and just starts sobbing, just like all of us are gonna do if this actually happens in the game. Imagine all of New York getting together to have a funeral for Spider-Man, and we see on the coffin it's black with a white spider logo on it, similar to how we saw Superman's casket look in Batman vs Superman. This would be such an emotional ending to the game and would have everybody in tears, and maybe we even see some cameos there too. A complaint that some people have is that we never see any of the other heroes in New York, like Doctor Strange, the Avengers, Daredevil. We just never see them, and imagine they get the license to put those characters in that funeral scene at the end. That would just be incredible. And then another thing I just thought of is maybe we even get to see Gwen Stacy in this funeral scene, because if all of New York goes to this funeral, maybe the police captain, Captain Stacy, which is Gwen's dad, says something about how Spider-Man helped the police force for years and how he was a great help to the city and that he will be severely missed, like something along those lines. You could definitely introduce Captain Stacy in a scene like that, and then all you've got to do is have his daughter Gwen even just standing there with an umbrella. She doesn't even have to say anything, we don't even have to see her face, but I think that would be a really great tease, you know, like if Peter died and then you have Miles, Silk, and Spider-Gwen. I think that would make for a pretty decent future for the Marvel Spider-Man video games. I know some people might not like that, but I think it would honestly be pretty cool. But yeah, so far we've talked about who the main two villains could be, so Carnage and Green Goblin. We've also talked about Anti-Venom leaving Peter and creating Agent Anti-Venom. Now let's talk about Green Goblin himself and how this is going to kind of happen. So Norman could turn into the Green Goblin by testing the G serum on himself to make sure that it's safe. He didn't test himself before attaching Venom to Harry, so he doesn't want to repeat that same mistake. Maybe he goes crazy and attacks the Spider-Man because we know he wants to know their identity and go after them. And I think he will also bond to Carnage at the end of the game, like I was saying earlier. I think the Spider team is going to beat him at the end of the second act, and then that's when Carnage is going to make its way over to Norman and create the Red Goblin. Now this would significantly power up Norman for the third act and allow him to fight multiple heroes and potentially his own son as Agent Anti-Venom, who is also powered up by the Anti-Venom symbiote. And I 100% think that Green Goblin is going to bond with Carnage, because if you think about it, we know there's going to be 3 Spider people in the next game, which is going to be Miles, Silk, and Peter. And I personally think if all 3 of those, and maybe even 4 if we include Agent Anti-Venom, go against Green Goblin, I think they're 100% winning. But how do you kind of even those odds? You get a crazy symbiote in Carnage to bond with Norman, creating Red Goblin, and then I think we have a pretty good fight on our hands in the final act of the third game. There is another way this could go, but I don't really see it going this way, and that could be the Sinister Six. So instead of maybe Red Goblin and all the stuff I was just talking about, maybe the final chapter character that Doc Ock was talking about in the post-credit scene could be a Sinister Six plot. And that would mean that Norman and Doc Ock will be teaming up and creating a team and going after all of the spider people, which sounds interesting, but they kind of did that already in the first game. And then at the same time, a lot of the heavy hitters that are typically on a Sinister Six team are dead or not fully bad guys anymore. So I don't know who exactly would be on that roster, but I think what will happen is that Norman will team up with Doc Ock to create the G serum, but I think Doc Ock is going to have a little bit of a betrayal here. So we know that Otto despises Norman, and maybe he pretends to be his friend again, just like they were in their college years, but he is backstabbing him directly by altering the G formula. Imagine Otto is laughing when Norman is going mad by testing himself with the G formula serum, and then he stops laughing as Norman slowly walks over to him and kills Otto. Then you can start to hear him as the Green Goblin start to laugh. I think that would be a really cool transformation scene, and it would really, make Green Goblin a threat right away. I know Doc Ock said he was writing the final chapter, and I think the plans that he made will still be used by Norman, but I don't think Otto himself will be part of those plans. I just can't see Green Goblin and Doc Ock teaming up for the third game. I think Norman is 100% killing him once he goes crazy. And now this part that I wrote here kind of ties into the part that I was talking about with Carnage murdering people and Peter coming back into the fold. So I wrote here, maybe at the beginning of the third game, Carnage is murdering people and Peter asks Miles if he's okay to take on this problem on his own or alongside Silk, and Miles says yes, especially with the help of Silk, but Peter is still worried. Then maybe the news breaks out that Otto Octavius has been murdered, and Peter immediately thinks that it was Cletus Cassidy as Carnage who did it, since he's been murdering people since the start of the game. This is where Peter ends his retirement and puts the suit back on to hunt down Carnage for killing his old mentor Otto. Then when he helps stop Carnage, he finds out Cletus has no idea who killed Otto, and this starts the mystery of the game and discovering it was Norman, aka the Green Goblin. I think this would actually be really cool. Like, this could sound terrible to you, but me personally, I think this would be a really great twist. You have Carnage out here murdering people, Otto Octavius shows up dead, Peter thinks that it's Carnage who did it, goes after Carnage, stops him alongside Miles and Silk, only to find out that Carnage didn't murder Otto, and then the team has to go find out who actually did it, and then surprise, surprise, it's Norman Osborn. I think this would be really, really cool, and I really want to see Agent Anti-Venom and all that, because I don't think they would keep Harry around just to, have him laying in a coma. Like, he's obviously going to have something to do, and I don't think he's going to become the Green Goblin or the Hobgoblin or any type of goblin, really, because he was already the villain in the second game. I highly doubt Insomniac would make him a villain in the second and third game, so I think he's going to have a little bit of a redemption arc, but still involving the symbiote, and I think he is going to become Agent Anti-Venom. But yeah, that's what I think is probably going to happen in that third game. I'm super excited for it. It looks like we're going to have 3 different playable characters, which is awesome. We're finally going to get Green Goblin and probably Carnage too, unless they do make a Carnage DLC, which I really hope they don't do that, because I really want to see Carnage in all his glory as a main villain. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see. That's just what I think is going to happen in the game, and kind of what I want to see happen in the game too. I think Carnage and Green Goblin would be perfect for that third game, but let me know down below in the comments what you think about this, and also let me know if you've been enjoying Marvel Spider-Man 2. I'm actually going on my second playthrough right now on Ultimate difficulty. It's a lot of fun. It's obviously a little bit more challenging, but yeah, the future is very bright for Insomniac in their Marvel universe. They've got the Wolverine game coming out probably next year, and man, if any of the stuff I just said in this video even happen, that would be incredible, and I think it would make for a really, really fun game. So guys, that is it for the video. Thank you for watching. If you want to see more videos just like this one, make sure you subscribe. Other than that, I hope you all have a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next video.